So everybody, I just wanted to make a quick update for the new things that we found out with Season 2. I'm able to test some things that were a bit undecided, a little weird in Season 1, and in the old list that I had up. So as you can see from the new list that there's quite a lot of stuff that either got cut or condensed. So what I wanted to talk about was why the E2s for Mika, Ray, Cassius are all just gone now. And that's because ever since Narja came out, we had this new mechanic of fixed healing, which obviously doesn't work for recovery, and I've already tested that, and I've showcased that before. And you'll just see some of the tests that I did in the background to show this off, but basically what's going on with the E2 for Mika, Ray, Cassius, but not Nia, is that the heal that they give, it was very inconsistent because Nia's E6 would grant recovery, but for these three characters, it would not grant recovery. And after doing more testing, because of this this item that you can now get in Season 2, I can confirm that the E2s for those three characters are in fact fixed healing. So they actually don't scale off of anything. Like obviously with anything else that's fixed, like fixed damage, fixed shield, fixed healing, there's no like buffs or debuffs or anything that you can do to really modify and make them any better. They're always just gonna go off of like your raw stats and whatever like raw bonuses that they get. So fixed healing will obviously increase if you put on some like armor pieces that increase your defense. But with any bonuses or effects that would say, increase healing by 25%, increase healing by 50%, it doesn't actually affect fixed healing at all. And as you can see from the videos that I have running in the background, that's exactly what's going on. The E2 healing is consistent, even if the other healing that the character could do is actually being increased. That also goes into one of the upgrades, or one of the upgrade epiphanies that I mentioned that didn't work. And it was one of those exceptions of at the end of turn, heal 20%. That has recently been updated as well, and I'll touch more on that and other things as well in the future, but to sort of put that in here as well, that has been changed to fixed healing. And the version where it would say at the end of turn, like shield 20%, that's also been fixed to fixed shielding, which is what they were always intended to be. And that's why they don't interact with the recovery system at all, because fixed healing does not interact with recovery at all. Certain other things are still not interacting with recovery, like the Domain of Veracity upgrade and the Domain of Veracity attack, which makes sense because the attack applies a debuff of Veracity to the enemy. It's a bit weird, but it's still like the same sort of buff that you would get from the upgrade. And the upgrade version as well, I believe just straight up doesn't work because even though technically it's stackable, you can't actually stack it because it's a unique, but also it's an icon buff. And most of the other icon buffs that I found, at least, are specific to the character. And that's something that I'll probably make a video about in the future. But if it has like the number next to it, that means obviously it's a stackable buff. But if it has like the combatant portrait on it, that means that it's like a self buff effect on it. So anything that doesn't have an icon next to it is like a team-wide effect. And there is a couple of like weird exceptions to this because Tressa and Cassius just got reworked. So there's still some like old stuff that they didn't adjust. So it's not 100% gonna always be like that. But for the most case, for like Narja and like hyper regeneration, those things, those don't count as recovery. And I'm pretty sure that is just because it is a self-buff type healing and not a team healing, so to speak. Now, since this is kind of like a 2.53 video, Since I actually wanted to go and talk about some other stuff, but then, this came out, and then I had a bunch of other testing to do at the time, so that's why this video is coming out much later than the first two in this series. And if you wanted to go back and check on those, then you can go check on them. They're on the channel, and I'll have them linked below as well. But the first part, we'll talk about the basics and a lot of the stuff that interacts with recovery that isn't items, because that's what the second part is about. It's just all of the items that have to do either with recovery or interacting with recovery, or don't interact with recovery, but could be confused that it could work, basically. And part one obviously is at this point going to have outdated information, because now this is updated, and now we understand why the ego manifestations, the general epiphany upgrade, and certain things like that, like why those don't work anymore, and why they were always intended to be this way. So I have a couple of suggestions. Hopefully they can get this by Season 3. Obviously, probably not by the next update. If they do, that would be awesome. But by Season 3 or beyond would be more ideal, I guess, because that's probably when new players are going to be coming in at the start of the season. But first of all, can we adjust the E2 text for Mako Ray Cassius so that instead of heal, it says fixed heal? Because I think that will make it a bit more easier for people to understand what it's actually doing. Because the way that heal works is obviously you can adjust it, like with tactical analysis or getting the stem in Season 2, or if they have some other item in Season 3 that's going to be like boosting like team healing, anything like that. Anything that like looks like it boosts healing or boosts any sort of like recovery, like it's obviously not going to work for those. And I know like the E2 is kind of just like it's supposed to be like a nice little like bonus thing, whatever. But if you're trying to build like a healing Cassius, and you're trying to build like a deck that consistently just draws all the time, and using him as like your main healer for a chaos, obviously building him as a healer is not going to work. Like you just straight up you can't build Cassius as a healer in that regard, because it's a fixed healing. You can't boost it at all. So I think clarifying that in the descriptions would be very nice for just players in general. And another thing is the keyword for recover, where it just says restore health. I feel like they should change this to be more clear, unless they want to just change all instances of healing that can recover into like restore, so that it aligns with the keyword. But then they're basically changing everything that isn't hyper regeneration, which doesn't make sense. I feel like that would confuse the player base even more. So I think what they should do instead is change recover when healing damage, and then continue off of there. Because obviously we all know that whenever you recover, it's whenever you heal, but you're not at full health. Even if you have one point of damage and you heal like 1000 HP, like that'll count as a recover, because you're healing at least a little bit of damage. At least 1 point of damage is being recovered off of this. So I don't have a perfect like replacement description for this at the moment, because I don't make scripts when I do these videos. I kind of just go off of the dome, and I go off of vibes and whatever I have written down as important key points. So I'll probably have something up on the screen here to explain sort of what I'm trying to convey a little bit better. And of course, I'll probably have a stove sort of like suggestion post about this as well, because this is something I've talked about and I've posted about before on there, at least with the branches, which by the by is still not fixed. That is something that they should fix, but I digress. Yeah, so that'll be kind of like my opinion on the keyword right now. It's a bit weird because like it's hard to make a perfect description for it because of the way that the mechanic works right now. Like look at this list. Like I don't like I don't know of like a perfect one sentence description that fits within all the parameters of like what's going on here.